leading you through a gentle practice this evening. So if you're new to yoga, welcome, or if you're simply new to class with me, welcome as well. But we're going to do a pretty gentle, low-key practice that is suitable for yoga practitioners of all levels, definitely accessible to beginners. And you don't really need much of anything. If you've got a blanket or a pillow, you might want that for underneath your head or to place underneath your knees at various points during the practice. Also, some of you might have yoga blocks. But if you don't have yoga blocks, you can grab a couple of thick and sturdy books or firm Tupperware containers or anything that would give a little height underneath your hands. So this is good for times when you can't quite reach the floor and you might want something to lift the floor up so it's a little bit closer to you. So we'll get started. You're gonna come onto your back. And as you come onto your back, go ahead and bend your knees. And so I always recommend coming onto the back with bent knees just to give the lower back a chance to relax and adjust to the shape. So coming onto your back, go ahead and bend your knees. And you can have your arms down by your side or allow them to rest on your belly. And if it works for you to close your eyes, that might be really nice here. And if closing your eyes doesn't feel right, you can always just kind of softly focus them. But the idea is that you want to turn your attention and your focus inwards. So rather than having eyes open and roaming all over the place, taking in information and stimulus from the outside world, you want to kind of distance yourself from that so that you can become more clearly connected with what's going on inside. And so maybe start by just bringing your awareness and attention to the back of the body, starting with the feet. If your knees are still bent, feeling into the soles of your feet. If you've come into a shape with legs extended at this point, maybe feeling into the back of your heels. And then just allowing your attention to move up the backside of the body. So from the feet, moving to the next point of connection. If the legs are bent, that's the back of the pelvis, back of the behind. And then as you travel up a little bit further on the body, maybe you can sense that space underneath the lower back. And then as you travel up the spine, noticing that it roots down into the floor once again. And then continuing up to notice that little curvature in the neck, again, taking the back of the body away from the floor. And then curving around the back of the skull and feeling that strong connection. And then see if every time you exhale, you can feel yourself pointing or sinking rather into those points of connection a little bit more fully. So your inhale might make you feel like you're lifting up off the floor some, or not quite as heavy a connection. And then you exhale and you sink down, drop down. And then everybody bringing hands to your belly. Just go ahead and rest your hands on your belly, spreading the palms wide. And using that point of contact as a means to bring some awareness to your breath. And so noticing the rise and the fall of the breath as you inhale and exhale, belly rising up and then sinking down. And if you're not getting much movement or much action beneath your palms, you might notice that your breath is stuck up at the top of your chest. And if that's the case, see if you might be able to move that breath or encourage that breath downward. And that maybe as you take your next inhale, you try to have that inhale generate some movement beneath the palms, and then work its way up to the rib cage and the center of the chest. And as you exhale, going in reverse, chest settles, rib cage draws in, and the belly relaxes back towards the spine. And continuing like that a few more times with that increased awareness of the way that the breath moves through the body. And if the mind is it's really active, like your body's in one place and your mind is in another, see if you can use that focus on your breath. So welcome yourself back home. Welcome yourself into your body and out of your head. And that might be easier said than done, depending on what kind of day you've had, depending on what's going on in your life, depending on how the holidays are tugging at your heart or tugging at your mind. No matter what the case is, see if to the best of your ability you can try to set whatever else is going on in your life aside for this 1 hour, this one precious hour. And see if you can give yourself that gift of just focusing on yourself. Let that be the most important thing in the world. As we all know that if we don't take care of ourselves, we're no good for anybody else or anything else. And with your next inhale, we're going to go ahead and reach our arms overhead. And if it's okay with your lower back, stretch your legs long. And as you do that, just begin to reach through your hands and through your feet. And turning your ankles and beginning to rotate your wrists. You might open and close your mouth some. Stretching out and yawning. And then gather both knees in towards your belly, just hugging them in tight. Then rock a little bit side to side, beginning to massage the lower back. You might hold on to your knees and rotate them around in little circles in one direction. And then eventually rotate around in the other direction. Good, and then just allow your feet to come to the floor, and you're welcome to keep the feet planted or stretch the legs long. I'm going to keep my knees bent. And we're going to begin really simple from here. Just going to begin to turn your head from side to side. And just rolling the head to look over your right shoulder and then look over your left shoulder. It's the side to side movement. Again, a massage to your back of your skull. A lot of nerve endings there. A place where people feel a lot of tension sometimes. And then go ahead and look over your right shoulder. You might pick up your head so that you can turn it a bit more completely and then set it back down. And keeping the head turned to look over your right shoulder, you're going to tuck your chin closer to your collarbone so that you brighten up that sensation on the left-hand side of your neck. And then reach your left arm out like a T, just straight out from the shoulder. And then maybe begin to bring that arm a little bit further down on an angle and see what that does for your neck. And then wherever you've rested that arm, go ahead and turn your palm towards the floor. Just taking a couple more moments here. And then release that palm, return your hands to your belly, and let your chin come to a neutral position, pointed straight up towards the ceiling, or the nose pointed straight up to the ceiling. And then turn your head to look over your left shoulder. And again, you might pick up your head a little bit so that you can turn it more before setting it down. And then bring your chin closer to your collarbone and reach your right arm out like a T. And then again, you might slide that arm down slightly in this extended position. Maybe seeing if there's a place where you get more sensation in your neck. You might not feel anything greater. And then turn your palm down towards the floor. And take a couple more breaths here. And then turn your palms to the ceiling. And once again, bring both hands to your belly. And you're going to reach your arms straight up towards the ceiling. Palms are going to face each other. Relax the shoulder blades heavy to the floor. Take a moment. And then you're going to shrug your fingertips up towards the ceiling and feel the shoulder blades lift from the floor. And then as you exhale, root them down. And then inhale, shrug the fingertips towards the ceiling so the shoulder blades lift up off the floor. And exhale, drop them down. And then do that a few times on your own. Inhaling the fingertips higher. Exhale, drop them down. Good. And then spread your fingertips wide. And you're going to bring your fingertips to touch. And then kind of open up your palms with your fingertips still touching. It's like you're holding a baseball in the cage of your fingertips and your palms. And then bend your elbows slightly. And we're going to drop our arms back behind us. Maybe the fingertips hit the floor. And then bring them back right up over your chest. And drop them back, slight bend to the elbows, touch down, and come back up. And do it a few more times. Matching the movement with your breath, you can decide which part of the motion is your inhale, which part of the motion is your exhale, depending on what feels most natural to you. Good. And then relax your arms by your side. You're going to move your feet closer together if they're wide, and then pick up your right knee and squeeze that knee towards your chest and begin to turn your ankle. And turn your ankle in one direction and then the other. And point and flex and wiggle your toes. Good. And then you can take your fingertips behind your thigh and you can bend and straighten that leg. If you've got your thigh real in close towards your belly, it's going to be a more challenging stretch to the hamstrings. The further away that thigh is from the belly, it might be a little less demanding on the back of the hamstring. If it's too hard to have the hands behind it, you could just simply rest them by your side and bend and straighten your leg without the constriction of your fingertips. Good. And then go ahead and straighten your leg up to the ceiling. And we're going to do some circles with the leg. You're going to drop the leg straight down, let it hover, swing it out to your right, and then circle straight back up. And we're going to do that 3 more times. So bring the leg straight down, circle it out to the right, and straight up. And do it for 2. And 1. Bring the leg straight up overhead again. And then re-catch it with your knee, with your hands, and draw that knee in. Take a couple breaths. You're going to release your left hand by your side and begin to externally rotate that right leg. So the right leg comes out so that the knee draws towards your underarm. And then go ahead and either catching your ankle or bringing the hand to the sole of the foot, you're going to begin to rotate that foot up. So the foot is pointing towards the ceiling. Keep pressing down. For those of you that are familiar with the pose, this is like half happy baby. So a happy baby with just one leg. And if you find that you're capsizing over to the right, you might choose to rotate some of that weight back into the left hip, left hand side of your behind. Take 1 more breath. Good. Slowly release the foot and hug your knee back towards your belly. And then you're going to straighten that leg along the floor, just kind of dragging your heel and pushing forward through that heel till the leg is straight. You can keep the opposite knee bent, or you might straighten that leg as well. Rest the arms by your side and just take a few moments here to notice. Notice what you're feeling, maybe sensing not only a relaxation of the muscles in your leg, but a relaxation of the mind and the nervous system. And then begin to bend your knees, bringing the soles of your feet to the floor. And you're going to catch that left knee and draw it in towards your belly. And then just begin to circle that ankle, pointing and flexing and wiggling the toes. And then you're going to go ahead and interlace your fingers behind your thigh and stretch your legs straight up to the ceiling and then bend. And do it a few times. And again, if it's too intense on the back of the thigh, to keep your fingers interlaced behind it, you can always release your hands and go for a bending and a straightening of that leg without catching behind the knee. And then eventually you're going to release your hands, everybody, and stretch your foot straight up to the ceiling. And we're going to do those big sweeping circles. So you're going to, with a straight leg, lower your leg down so it just barely grazes the floor. And then swing your leg all the way out to the left and straight up. We've got 3 more. So leg comes down in front, swings out to the left, and then does a big sweep up. And we'll drop it down for 2, sweep it around, and 1. We're going to sweep it around, bring it up overhead, and then catch your knee once again. Release the right arm by your side and begin to take that knee out towards your left underarm. And then we'll come into that half happy baby. So beginning to direct the foot and the shin up towards the ceiling or perpendicular to the floor and take hold of your ankle or your foot. There's some downward pressure there, coming into some sensation in the outer hip. 1 more moment. Good, and then as you release, stretch that leg up towards the ceiling. And then with a straight leg, you're going to float it all the way down to the floor. You can leave one leg bent and the other straight, or let the right leg extend as well. And we'll just take a couple of breaths. So weaving in these points of stillness within your practice so that you have the opportunity to notice what's happening along the way. And then go ahead and bend both knees and gather them in towards your belly. You're going to catch behind your thighs and either rock up towards a seat, or you might roll off to either side and steer yourself up to a seated position. I'm going to come from here to hands and knees. You might want to put a blanket underneath your knees if they feel a little bit tender. Otherwise, just come on into the shape. And coming into tabletop, spread the palms. You can rest on the tops of your feet or tuck your toes under, your choice. And then we'll begin what's called cat-cow. So you'll inhale and tilt the pelvis forward, drawing the shoulders back and opening up the heart. And then exhale and round, reaching the back of the heart towards the ceiling. Inhale, tilt the pelvis forward, a little backwards drag of the hands, open up the heart. And then exhale, push the floor away, hollow out the belly, and round. Back and forth a few more times. Good. And then after your next round, go ahead and pause. And then bring big toes together, open your knees nice and wide to provide a more spacious quality. Sit your hips back and bow down.
So bringing your forehead to the floor is challenging. You can always hold your hands underneath your head. From here, you might begin to roll your head from side to side, giving yourself a bit of a massage to the temple, the brow.
And then come on up back to your tabletop shape. Good. Send your left leg behind you. Let the hips level off and pause. And then extend your right arm forward. Take a couple of breaths here. You're seeing if you can lift your left leg a little bit higher, but without bending your knee. And then lower your right hand down. Keep your leg extended and bring the ball of your foot to the floor. Just hook your toes and push through your heel. And you can choose one long push of the heel, or you might pulse a few times. Good. And then stay static. See if you can keep your body as still as possible and just step your right foot back so you land in a plank. Hands are stacked under the shoulders. Hips are level. If this is a little too much, you can always drop your knees, but keep your chest over your wrists and your tailbone tucked so you're still getting strengthening in the core and the upper back. And then begin to walk your hands backwards towards your feet. You'll pass through a downward facing dog, coming towards the back of your mat. And open your feet a little bit wider, soften your knees, and allow your upper body to just hang down over your thighs. And as you hang down over your thighs, maybe there's a little bit of movement there. And then press into your feet. Sweep your arms high and wide. Rise up. And then stepping feet closer together, bring hands in at your heart. Now bring your left hand to your hip, sweep your right arm up. And then just reach up and over to the other side. Good. So getting long in that side waist. Try to keep rolling the shoulder back so that you're not collapsing and caving in on yourself. And then as you come on up, that hand's going to come right to your hip. Sweep the left arm up, and then pressing into your right hip, reach up and over. Good, and then lowering both arms down for a moment before they sweep up overhead, and you're going to rise up onto the balls of your feet. So just a moment here in palm tree. Take a couple breaths. And then lower your heels, big swan dive down to the floor. Walk yourself forward again to that high plank. Hold for a moment, reach the crown of the head forward. Knees can always drop to the floor. And we're going to lower slowly all the way to our belly. Once you land, point your toes behind you, square up your chin or your forehead to the floor. Hands are right outside your shoulders. Bring the elbows in, loop the shoulders back, long through the toes and the tailbone. Lift your heart for a cobra. Take a couple moments here. and then lower down. Push yourself back through a tabletop, and then come into a child's pose, adjusting yourself and bowing in. Take a few breaths. Couple more moments. And returning to your tabletop, go ahead and adjust yourself. And this time it's the right leg that's going to reach back behind you. And you're going to float the left arm forward. Holding, steady and strong. Again, maybe playing with lifting that leg a little bit higher, but without bending your knee. And then lower your foot, bring the ball of your, lower your hand, bring the ball of your foot to the floor and push through your heel. Take some time here. Bring your shoulders so they're over your wrists. Keep everything nice and steady. And just slide that left foot back so you come into a high plank. Hold, couple of breaths. And this time it's a downward facing dog. Lift your hips up and back. And from your downward facing dog, you might begin to pedal your feet and rock your hips back and forth. You can bend your knees generously. Try to reach your heart back towards your thighs. And then begin to walk your hands and feet towards one another. And you can soften your knees. Allow the upper body to drape down over your thighs. Hang out here in this deep forward fold a couple of moments. And then take your hands and bring them right below your knees. You're going to straighten your legs and try to come to a flat back. So reach the crown of your head forward. Send the crease of your hips back, shoulders back. Hold here. And then exhale, soften your knees. Hand fold down. Good. And again, bring hands right under the knees. Press so that you send your hips back, straight legs, flat back. Shoulders are pulling away from the ears. And then exhale. And melt down again. One more time, but with a little bit of variation. You're going to press into your shins, let your heart and your head sail forward. And then some of you might bring your arms out like a T. If this feels like too much for the back body, you could bend your knees, but still try to keep the torso parallel with the floor. Take a moment here, palms are facing down. And then everybody, generous bend of your knees, sweep your arms down and forward and rise up. And then bring hands in at heart center. Let your thumbs touch into the sternum. Couple of breaths here. And then release your arms down. And we're going to turn, if you're not already there, right to the very front of your mat. So stepping up. And you can take your blocks or take your books, whatever it is that you have available, and bring them outside your ankles. So if you've joined class a little bit late, I directed folks at the beginning of class to grab something that could support their hands. Not necessary, but it might be useful and give you a little bit more access into some of the shapes. So bring your hands to your heart. And And we're going to inhale. Sweep your arms up. So reaching them wide. And you're going to do a big swan dive down. Good. Bring your hands to your blocks and step your left foot back for lunge. You're going to bend deeply into your front knee and lift your heart. Take a moment here. We're going to tap that back knee down and straighten our leg a few times. So just sink that knee to the floor and then push through your heel to straighten the leg back up. Big work for the backs of the legs. Tap your knee down and then push the heel away. Do it 2 more times. So tap the knee down, push the heel away, tap the knee down, push the heel away, and then tap the knee down, keep it down, and untuck your back toes and bring your hands to your hips. Just take a moment. You might widen your stance so you feel more stable. And then you'll slide your hips forward, pausing here. Hands can remain on the hips or maybe they reach up to frame the ears. A breath or 2. Good, and then bring your hands down to your blocks. You're going to slide your hips back. You might need to squiggle that front foot forward to get it straight. Flex your foot. I can move my blocks so you can see my foot more readily. And then reach your heart forward. Keep flexing, bringing the toes towards you and bowing. And then lower your foot to the floor again. And a bend into that knee, reach your heart forward. And you're going to tuck your back toes under and lift that knee up off the ground. So you've got a deeply bent front leg. You're on the ball of your back foot. And we're coming on up to crescent-toed warrior. So the arms can sweep forward and up. Or you might bring hands to your hips and begin to climb to an upright position slowly. So keeping hands in your hips, sink the hips down a little bit more, or maybe arms are by your ears. Hold here. One more moment. And then fingertips can come down just to touch the floor. We're going to step back to a downward facing dog. So you might press into your blocks, or you might have hands on the floor. That right foot's going to slide back, and we'll find a downward facing dog. Take a couple of breaths. And then begin to walk yourself up towards your hands. Your knees might be generously bent to help get you there. And then a big press into the feet. You'll sweep your arms high and wide. And then exhale and join them through to heart center. Let's inhale and sweep the arms up. And then exhale, we'll dive all the way forward. Hands can find their ways to your block and step the right foot back. Good. Lengthen your stance. Press hands into your blocks. And then we're going to bend and straighten that back knee. So you can tap the knee to the floor and then push and straighten through that back leg. Tap the knee to the floor, push and straighten through that back leg. Do it a few more times. And then lower the knee down. Untuck your toes. Bring hands to your hips. Pause here. Maybe the left foot squiggles over to the side for stability. And then sink your hips forward and send the arms up. And just hanging out here. Couple of breaths, feeling the opening to the right hip, right thigh. And then letting your hands come to blocks. Gonna shift your hips back, flex your front foot so that front leg is straight. And you bow in. And go ahead and bend that front knee again. Hands are going to remain on your blocks or floor or books, whatever you have. And tuck your back toes under and lift that knee. So coming back into that lunge. And hands can come to your hips. And they might straighten all the way up overhead. Pause. A few moments. All right, hands are going to come to the floor or your blocks. Press into the hands and take that left foot back to a downward facing dog. Good. Use this as an opportunity to play. And then tap your knees down to the floor. Bring your big toes together. Let the knees go wide. Sit your hips back. And we're going to come into a child's pose. And from child's pose, you're going to ease your way down to your belly. And make sure that blocks and other stuff is out of the way. And we'll come into, to start, that cobra shape. So the chin or the forehead is squared on the floor. Hands are outside your shoulders. You can go ahead and move your hands back a bit so they're towards your bottom rib rather than your top rib or your shoulders. And kind of track your hands backwards before anything else happens. So kind of drag the heels of your palms backwards. And then through that action, lift your chest. Keep dragging the palms backwards and lift your legs as well. Take one more breath. And lower down. Turn your head in either direction. Relax through the hips and the lower back. And we'll come in one more time with the opportunity for variation. So you'll begin to, again, kind of track and drag your palms backwards. Draw the shoulders together. Lift the chest, heart, face. Lift the legs. You could stay right here, or you might then reach your arms back, coming into Shalabhasana or locust pose. Take one more breath. And lower down. Bring hands underneath your shoulders and push back to a child's pose. Good. From your child's pose, we're going to come back onto our back. So go ahead and spin yourself around. Come onto the back body. Hug your knees in towards your belly and just rock around a little bit. And hold on to the fronts of the knees or backs of the thighs, whatever feels most accessible. And then lower your feet to the floor. We're going to have our feet about hips width distance apart. Arms are going to be by your side, fingertips brushing the heels. And we're going to lift the back of the body, coming up into a bridge, maybe not your fullest capacity, because we're going to exhale and lower the backside down. Good. And then again, go ahead and press into the feet. Lift the pelvis up, bringing the chest towards the chin. And lower down. If you'd like, as you continue, you might press and lift the chest, lift the behind, and maybe you sweep the arms up overhead at the same time. And then lowering down the back of the body and the arms, resting down at the same time. Do it a few more times with or without the sweep of the arms. One more time. And the next time the backside lands, hug the knees in towards the belly. Lower your feet to the floor. And then cross the left ankle over the right thigh. Spin that thigh out. And then pick up your right foot and catch behind your thigh. You can flex both feet. Relaxing the back body to the floor. If you're having trouble catching behind your thigh, you might choose to use something behind there, like a belt or a washcloth, or you might just hold on to your pants or even your left ankle. And then begin to lower your right foot down. Keep the cross of your left ankle. Now walk your right ankle over to the right. And then guide your legs down and over to the left. The arms can come out in a T or a kind of cactus or goalpost shape with a soft bend to the elbows. Another few breaths. See if you can just surrender to the force of gravity rather than pushing or shoving your legs to the ground. Just trust. And then inhale them back up. You're going to uncross your legs. Set your feet wide apart. And then turn your toes in towards each other. And allow your knees to knock down against each other. Bring your hands to your belly. And just take a couple breaths. All right, and then allow the legs to separate. Knees point straight up to the ceiling. Cross the right ankle this time over the left thigh. Roll the hip and the knee out. And then pick up the left foot and catch behind that thigh. And if you can't catch behind that thigh, maybe you hold on to your right ankle instead, or your pants. Try to relax the back of the body as much as possible in the shape. And then keeping the cross of your ankle, the left foot lowers down and begins to shuffle off to the left. And then using the right ankle, you'll let your legs drop down to the right. And again, the arms might come out like a T or relax into the goalpost shape. And then let the legs come up and uncross the legs. Adjust yourself so you're centered on your mat. Bring your legs in towards your belly. You come into a simple twist here. So opening the arms out wide, keeping the legs in tight towards the belly. And then you're going to just let them fall over to the left, stacking one on top of the other. Try to keep rolling the upper chest to the right, adjusting that arm as needed. And maybe you take that left hand and just rest it right on top of that right leg. Let the eyes close and see if you can soften into the shape. So noticing if there's any place where you're really gripping or working harder than you need to. And then letting your left hand release, bring the knees in towards the belly as you roll onto your back. And then you just let them fall down to the other side. Stacking one on top of the other. Right hand resting on top of the left thigh, adjusting the left arm so that you can aid the upper body opening and spinning to the left. And then releasing, rolling onto your back and adjusting yourself again so that you're centered on your mat. And then drawing both knees in towards the belly. And then easing the feet to the floor. Feet can stay hips width distance apart, rooted on the floor, or you might decide to stretch them long. And to come into what's called Shavasana. It's really just a few minutes, few moments of rest at the end of our class. So a chance to kind of digest your practice the way that you would if you eat a delicious meal and you give yourself time to just really let it sink in and appreciate it. Your breath be soft and easy here. If the mind is wandering, see if maybe hands placed on the belly can keep you rooted in your body. And just take about a minute more here. And at any time if lying on your back feels uncomfortable, you can always come to sit quiet in a meditation. And then slowly begin to deepen the breath. You might begin to stretch the arms overhead, wiggle about. You open the mouth and take a big sigh or yawn. And then gathering the knees in at your belly, you can roll yourself off in either direction. And guide yourself up to a seat. And as you come into your seat, adjust yourself so you can sit with some comfort and ease. Hands resting on your lap, the eyes closed. And just take notice of what shifted and changed, the ways that you feel more open and spacious, not just in the body, but in the heart and the mind as well. And we'll draw palms together at your heart. Let the thumbs touch in to the heart center, using that as a reminder to let your heart be your guide. And we'll take a deep bow of gratitude and appreciation to one another. Thank you all very much for spending this hour with me. If you have any questions or comments about the practice and you're watching on Facebook, feel free to leave them in the chat. And I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening.